In this video, I want to talk about one of my favorite functions in Excel, and it's actually a group of 3 functions that you can use for rounding purposes in Excel. The round function itself has a pretty simple purpose, but using it a bit more creatively, you can add a lot of value to your Excel spreadsheets and different financial models. I also want to show you how you can use the other 2 functions, round up and round down, to make sure that you have the right rounding in specific use cases. For example, if you're working with a number of employees and you need to budget something based off of those numbers, you can use round up to make sure that you're always covering the requirement, meaning that you can never have 11.3 employees, but if you want to calculate a budget for hiring those employees, you have to round up to 12. I'm also going to show you a few other cool ways to use the rounding functions in Excel. And in the end, I'm also going to show you how you can quickly add rounding to any model that you already have with the help of an Excel add-in. Let's open Excel and dive straight in. I have this worksheet here with some examples. So the first thing, we can always use the regular round function to round those revenue figures. Here it would be round. I'm gonna pick this one, and we want 0 digits after the decimal point, so it will be a whole number. And once we have that, we can hide those zeros, and that's already a much nicer representation. What a lot of people do, and what we actually usually put into financial statements, is to just grab this and divide it over 1,000, or we can grab the original number here as well, divide it over 1,000, copy that down, and just hide the numbers after the decimal point. This makes it easier to read, but as I mentioned, in my opinion, it kind of diminishes the impact of the figures. So what I actually prefer to do is use round here again, grab this one, and then round to -3 digits. So this would round before the decimal point in essence, and 74,460 becomes 74,000. Copy that down, and now we have the same rounded numbers, but they carry the impact with them, and it's much easier to understand what's happening here. We can also do rounding dynamically, which is really great if you have a more complex model and you have a config worksheet where we have different configurations that users can pick from. In this case, we can use the round function again, grab this and just point towards a cell. It can be on a separate sheet, as I mentioned, a config sheet. And now we have our rounding being dynamic. So if we say 0, this will be to 0 digits after the decimal point. And you can use data validation to make dropdowns like this. If you go to data validation, you see here that I have this allowing a list, and I've just listed the numbers I want. So in here, we can list -3, -2, and -1, for example. And now, if I pick -3, we get the same result as in here. And that's the round function. The round up function, the second one, is really great in scenarios where we're working with, for example, employees or vehicles or things that cannot be decimal. What I mean is that you cannot have 2.5 cars. If you need 2.5 cars, you have to get 3 cars to do the job. Same with employees. What I have here is a calculation showing us how many FTEs we need to perform specific functions within each department. A lot of people just grab those numbers and make their calculations with them, but this can be misleading, especially if you're calculating budgets for hiring and things like that. So if you just grab the total and calculate your costs and your budgets based off of that, you might end up missing the mark. Some people understand that you cannot use decimal FTEs, so they will just use the round function, round it to 0, copy that down, calculate that, and end up with 59 employees. But this is actually incorrect, because for all those up here, 11 people won't be able to do the job that we estimated needs 11.2 people. So we can use the round up function to essentially cover our requirements. Grab this number, round it to 0, and now we have the required new FTEs to cover the specific functions within each department. And as you can see, initially we had 59.8 new FTEs and now we have 63. So for example, if we're paying 10,000 per FTE for hiring and recruiting, this would give us more than a 30,000 difference between calculating our hiring budget with this number and calculating it with the correct number. Next one, the round down function is really great when we have some hard limits that we cannot surpass, so we need to be below those. So for example, here we have a team of 7 people and we need to allocate our data plan towards those. So imagine you're the manager, you have to allocate the available data to those people. We can just calculate it, spread it evenly, but let's say our data provider says that they can only do that in increments of 10. So they are not able to give John 1,857.14 gigabytes of data. Here's where we can use the round function again. And the round function would be really great if we're rounding to 0, and it would be great in this case. So for example, if this was a bit more and this wasn't 0.14 but 0.65, then everything would round up and will be above our total. If, for example, do that, so let's say 4. Yeah, you see, if we have 13,004 gigabytes and we just round, essentially it's rounding up and we are above the total. So we cannot work with those numbers. What we can do is use round down to make sure that all of those are rounded down, so we are certain that we will never be above what we are allowed to as a total. For example, if I add 4 here again, you see that our total changed. Now our net allocation, if we just use the simple round function, is above that, but our presented allocation with round down still is below the total. I mentioned that they might have a 10 gigabyte increment. So what we can do is we can do -1 and do it like that. But then you see, let me just bring that back to the original 13,000. You see that the round function again is misleading us because it's rounding upwards in this specific case because we have 57. But using the round down function, you can just do -1 here and it would round everything to 1,850 for each user. You see that in this case, we are below the available total, but we are able to satisfy all the requirements and essentially split this evenly across our team of 7 people. The round functions are such a great tool in Excel, and as you start using them more, you'll see so many use cases where they can help you, especially the round up and round down. They're a bit more niche, but they can be really helpful in order to ensure that your models don't end up providing wrong values or providing wrong guidance, essentially. Here I have revenue and margins summary, and as you can see, it's really messy. It's kind of hard to read. So the first thing that pretty much everyone would think of doing is just hide the digits after the decimal point. But for me, this is still way too messy. And because I love the round function so much, I actually built in my add-in this option to wrap cells in rounding. So essentially what I can do here is I can grab this, say 0, for example. I can pick from the different functions, apply that. And now if I come and show the decimal digits again, you see that it's all rounded to 0 digits after the decimal point. But this doesn't help me because it's still too messy. So I'm gonna hide those, come back here, and I want to show those in thousands, but with 3 zeros to keep the impact of the actual values. Since I already have this round function added, just gonna go to rounding, remove rounding, and it's gonna remove all those. And now I can go ahead, wrap cells in rounding and just go to -3. I have a nice little preview here, apply that. And now everything is much easier to read and understand, but at the same time, it actually carries the weight of this being 282,000 and not just 282, which in my opinion is really important in terms of how you perceive numbers and how you work with data, especially when you're using this data to make strategic decisions. As you can see, the rounding functions in Excel are really helpful in a lot of scenarios and use cases, and we've essentially barely scratched the surface of what you can do and how you can employ the different versions of the round function to improve the quality of your Excel spreadsheets. The Minty Tools for Excel add-in that I showed you is something that I have developed specifically with the aim to help you save time when you're working on repetitive tasks in Excel. If you want to check it out and let me know what you think, you can use the first link in the description down below. And if you decide to purchase it and support the channel and me, you can find a 50% discount link in the description box down below. Now, before I let you go, I want to show you my #1 trick on how to instantly add value to any Excel spreadsheet. And I'm going to do that in this video up here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in this video.